Hi, I'm Linda, and this is No Frills ASMR. I ordered this short story recently, and last night I read it in full in a video for you guys because I had never read it before and I was curious about it. To my horror, okay, that's extreme. I loaded it up and I clicked on it last night real quick and realized it was only recorded in the left ear. So I'm not sure what I'll do with that video. So this morning I was thinking about the story because it's very good. And it made me think of a cognitive bias that we had read about when we did these cognitive bias cards one time, these critical thinking cards, which I made a video just looking at a few of these, and I'll make more videos with these. I haven't done it. So I have that card here. But first I'll just tell you a little bit about this story because I don't know if people will watch it because it's kind of a bummer. If you listen to it without headphones, you probably wouldn't notice. But with headphones, it'll only be in your left ear. I'm going to burn my hand trying to light this candle, speaking of to build a fire. All right, there's our fire. So this is a story. I'll just read the back real quick. Originally published in 1908, To Build a Fire is a short story by American author Jack London, who wrote, White Fang and, oh, for goodness sakes, I can't remember the name of the other one. You guys know. It is, in it, an unnamed protagonist ventures out in sub-zero boreal forest of the Yukon Territory, accompanied by his dog, to visit friends, ignoring warnings from an older man about the dangers of hiking alone. The protagonist underestimates the harsh conditions and slowly begins to freeze to death. And here is a picture of the man, and here he is trying to build a fire, and there's his dog. It's about, what is it? How many pages? It is 23 pages in this book, which are printed top to bottom pretty fully. But it took me reading it out loud, which is slower, I think, than reading to yourself. It took me 50 minutes or even 45 minutes maybe, because I talked a little bit. So I highly recommend reading it, especially if you like, well, actually anybody could read this because we're going to talk about it. But it's a story of a man who he's meeting up with the boys to talk about mapping out, I think, some logging that they're going to do in the Yukon Territory, which is very far north and has extreme weather conditions. And when we meet him, he has already started the walk, and he's feeling pretty confident. He has been in sub-zero weather before, like negative 130 degrees. But as he's walking, he realizes it's colder than he anticipated, and it might be negative 150. But in reality, the author tells us it's negative 170 or 175, I forget. I think that's right. Or maybe he thinks it's 130 and it's 150 negative. Either way, it's very, very freezing cold. And he underestimated how cold it would be. So as he walks, we also kind of have some insight into his dog, who seems like it may have been an old mushing dog, like for pulling snow, sleds. And he's probably part wolf, part husky, and is not like a friend of the old man. He just is afraid of being whipped, and that's why he does what the guy tells him to do. And you understand that the dog, instinctually knows this is not a good time to be out hiking in this kind of weather, and that the dog, of his own accord, would dig a hole in the snow and curl up to be protected from the wind and keep himself warm. Or he would count on the old man, I don't know why I'm calling him old, I don't know how old he was, the man, to build a fire and help keep him warm. So you have that knowledge. And then as they hike along, the man tells us in his thoughts that one, it's extremely cold, and two, someone from the area, the old person from the area, had told him before he left not to hike in this weather because it's too dangerous, and never to do it alone, that only a crazy person. And that he actually laughed at him when he suggested he was going to do this and said, no, that's foolish, don't do that. But this guy thought he knew more than the local old guy who knows the area. So that's the gist of the story without giving away too much. Although I could spoil the whole thing if you wanted, because I did read it. But it made me think of this morning one of the biases that we were looking at when we looked at these cards, and that is the Dunning-Kruger Effect. And the Dunning-Kruger Effect is when we tend to overestimate our knowledge or ability, especially in areas with little or no experience. But I think that it can be, this guy, for example, has some experience, especially because he's from the lower United States, not up in the far north. And he has been in cold weather. He has been cold weather camping and hiking. And so he feels he's an expert. But the local, who actually is an expert, has told him, no, nobody goes out in this kind of weather. It's too dangerous. There are springs under the snow that you can accidentally step into, and if you get wet, you're in trouble. The old man has told him all this, but this guy feels, because of his limited expertise, that he is a complete expert. Like, knowing 10% makes him believe he knows 100%, more than the guy who actually knows. And the older man has told him the dangers, and he says about that older man that he tends to, let's see if I wish I should have marked the quote, but he says, it's sort of a funny old-fashioned line, in my opinion, that the old man thinks too womanly, I think is what he says. So he feels that the old man's just being a big woman or a baby or a wimp, and that he's tougher and knows better. But the truth is, he doesn't, and he makes some very bad errors and ends up with his hands freezing and his feet freezing, and he has everything he needs to build a fire, but his hands are so frozen that he can't manage the matches and the twigs and everything to build the fire. And that's why it's called To Build a Fire. And so you kind of experience with him the feeling of trying to build the fire and the circumstance he got himself in. And he starts to think about what the old man said to him and wonders if maybe he gave himself too much credit for knowing what he's doing. And the dog watches him and also says, I don't think this guy knows what he's Um, yeah, it's a great story. I think it's really worth, if you're an outdoorsy type or if you're somebody who thinks you know everything. It's a great story. Let's see. So I read a little bit about this Dunning-Kruger effect, and apparently this term was coined by guys named Dunning and Kruger. I didn't take notes of their names or anything, but it was in 1995, and they started researching a story they had heard about a man in, I think, Pennsylvania. I think it was Pittsburgh. And this man believed in one day he robbed two banks, and he had put lemon juice all over his face because he believed that the lemon juice would make him invisible. And of course that wasn't true, but he had heard that lemon juice on paper makes things invisible. And he said he put the lemon juice on his face and took a selfie Polaroid, and that he didn't show up in the picture. And so he believed that lemon juice wouldn't be picked up by heat cameras, and that made him invisible. Anyway, so these guys started studying this idea that if you know a little bit of something, maybe you think you know everything. And you think you're an expert. So they have here, let's see, what do they have on this card? Craig is more confident about doing the dangerous experiment than Amy, his instructor, because it's like sometimes a little bit of knowledge puts you in more danger than a whole lot of knowledge. Like if Amy has done outdoor snow camping, she knows how dangerous it is, because she's done it a lot and she's been through a lot. But Craig, who maybe has read about it and, oh, hold on, I have a book right here, has looked up everything there is in the worst case scenario survival book. He might think he's an expert and say, oh, I could do it because I know exactly. But Amy, who's the actual expert, knows how dangerous it is. Does that make sense? I think that's right. Here's the next thing. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people so full of doubts. Yeah. So that's what this kind of made me think of. This to build a fire is the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know how sometimes on like American Idol, there are those people who maybe have, this goes back, not current American Idol, but I'm talking about early days with Simon Cowell. And there'd be people who would practice singing with like the Wii. I don't know if it's the Wii, but one of those. We used to have it was called like Song Star or something, and you'd sing along with the music. And basically, if you could just, I don't know if this really has anything to do with this, but if you could hold the note here and then go up to here, then it would go, you're doing great. It didn't matter if you were actually on pitch, the right pitch, as long as you went, and you didn't actually have to be singing. You could just kind of hold a, la. And so, like, my boys and I'd play, and some of them would just go, la, la. I'd be like, no, you have to sing. But that's kind of, I think, why some of the people, and I thought it was kind of cruel, but some of the people who went on the early American Idol, they thought, based on having that sing star tell them they were great singers and singing in the mirror, that they were really, really, really expert and great singers. And when they went on there, they couldn't believe it when Simon Cowell would laugh at them. I think that's a Dunning-Kruger. But this book made me think of, we'll talk about it sometime. I'll do a video on it. But there is a story about, I forget what it's called. It's like Dilative Pass or something. I forget. But it's this group of young Russian students. And they got together And they were very experienced outdoors people. And they went hiking into the Russian wilderness, the snow. They were like 10 miles out in the deep. And eventually they were found after not coming home. And they had all died. And they had somehow cut their tent from the inside, was what was told. And they had run out with only half dressed. And there are all these theories as to what happened to them. This doesn't really have to do so much with this. It has to, this story made me think of that. And so sometime I'll do a video just on that, I think, because it's an interesting story and a story of, to me, of how people, because people like try to claim that like, oh, not astronauts, aliens came down, or a Yeti or whatever. But the truth is, the outdoors is scary enough. You don't need all that other stuff. So maybe we'll do a video on that. I don't know. And this also made me think of the TV show that I love to watch, Alone. On the TV show Alone, which I think is on Netflix right now, it's on the History Channel, I think. They send people off into the wilderness, and they don't have like a camera crew following them, so it's a little different from like Naked and Afraid. They are actually alone, and they have to set up their own camera or have a selfie camera, or they have a head, like GoPro on something. And they go out there, and they're out there for like, some of them who stay a long time, it's like 100 days or more. They're out all by themselves in the wilderness. And it is so easy for me to sit home and I'll see them doing something like they'll have their axe and they'll be holding a piece of wood and chopping it like this. And I'm like, no, because I'm just waiting for them to chop their finger. And they do sometimes. Or they'll be carving something this direction instead of away from themselves, which makes me crazy. And you're just waiting for them to go and cut themselves. But it is so easy when you are home in your comfy jammies, on your comfy couch with a fire, with your candle burning, to say, oh, you dummy, what were you thinking? But if you're out there for 100 days, starving, I mean literally starving, trying to make your way, you're probably more of an expert than me, who's been backpacking 10 times in my life with proper gear. Anyway, I'm gone on all kinds of tangents here, but yeah, I recommend this book. I thought it was really good. I wish that the recording I made wasn't just in one ear, but if you just put it on a earphone speaker, I think it'll be okay. I don't think I could reread the whole thing because it doesn't look very long, but it took me an hour, so almost. But this book was originally published in 1908, but it doesn't feel old-timey. It has very sort of modern feel to it, I felt. So, anyway, all right, guys, I will talk to you soon. That was sort of a rambly video, isn't it? We're going to have to pull these out again and look through them, these essential critical thinking cards. I have put the ones we already did going one direction, and the ones we haven't done going the other. So this one was one we had already done. So I'll have to make another video looking at them.